To be or not to be a safety leader? That is the question. Is there no nobler calling than to watch out and care for those under our span of influence and control? Are we after fame and fortune, or are we after awareness to ensure that our colleagues make it back home to their loved ones every evening? Where do we learn this noble concept and from whom? How do we inspire and ensure we reach those that most need us and our support and guidance? What are the challenges we face and how do we persevere? In the end, what is the reach to the extended persons that we should never get a chance to meet? The family, the friends, the acquaintances of our fellow workers. For when we do our job and are successful, everybody goes home safely to their loved ones at the end of the day. Hello, my name is Wesley Wheeler and I'm the Executive Director of Safety for the National Electrical Contractors Association. I'm also an SMS, a Safety Management Specialist through the BCSP, the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. In addition, I have over 40 years of experience in the electrical industry and hold a license as a Certified Unlimited Electrical Contractor in the state of Florida. As a career, safety and leadership go hand in hand. So let's get started with our discussion. Leadership is an important part of the success of a company's health and safety initiative. That's because we know that leaders have the power to influence those around them and to make positive impact on the culture and commitment within a company through the safety strategies that they put into place. So what is leadership? Well, here's a simple definition. Leadership is the ability of an individual or group of individuals to influence and guide followers or other members of an organization. And while there are many different definitions one can find for leadership, it can all boil down to the ability of a leader to influence others to act or behave in a certain manner. As through strong leadership, they can influence culture, engagement, motivation, and also safety. So safety leadership is the process of defining the desired state, setting up the team to succeed, and engaging in the discretionary efforts that drive the safety value, which broadly boils down to engaging in and maintaining behaviors that help others achieve our safety goals. So when we look at this and we reflect on our experiences that have brought you here today for this particular course, there have been many different people that could define as safety leaders in your life. These include our parents. They protected us growing up. They taught you how to recognize hazards. To look both ways before crossing the street. Don't touch the stove, it's hot. How about our friends? Through shared experiences, watching out for each other, saying that may not be such a good idea. You may want to think twice on that. What about our coworkers? Again, through shared experiences, they know the hazards on the job, and if they see you doing something that's unsafe, they'll speak up to protect you and others around you. Your supervisors, teaching you to work safely and to help ensure that you go home at the end of the day to your families. It's important. It's also their responsibility to supervise and watch out for your safety. And what about others? Who would you consider a safety leader? What about you? Think about yourself. Do you consider yourself a safety leader? Do you think you have the attributes to become a safety champion? So let's look at a few of the attributes of a safety leader. Well, many times they're self-driven and self-development, and so they're motivated to succeed. By definition of a servant leader, they're looking at, team-oriented success and team development of those on the team. Many safety leaders are calculated and prepared when it comes to strategic thoughts and actions to get accomplished what the mission is in their safety leadership. The other thing that the safety leaders are known for is to say and do the right thing. Why? Because they believe in the ethical values and principles that go along with watching out for others. The other thing that a safety leader may have to do from time to time is be innovative and creative. There are many challenges that arise in the processes and procedures and even the people that we work with. So we have to overcome those challenges and work for success to become a safety leader. And then the next question is really, why do we keep people safe? Well, I mean, it really is to make a difference. Leading with safety shows empathy towards others. You know, we lead with safety because it creates and maintains the trust between coworkers, between friends, between family. And it really is a way for us to show respect for others and how we care. There are really family that depend on you and your coworkers. Think about your family and their families and how they depend on each of you to come home at the end of the day. Well, when we talk about leadership, there really is 3 C's of leadership. There's competence. Leaders are people that once and still are followers, because in order to lead, you have to know how to follow. Leaders must know what must be done and surround themselves with other competent experts to lead a successful team. Do they have to know all the technical expertise themselves? No. But they do need to recognize the experience and expertise that is needed to be successful. They have to have character. Leaders must know what is legally, morally, and ethically the right thing to do, in addition to the integrity and courage to follow through with it. The last C is commitment. Dedication to protecting the safety of the people around you and a responsibility to protect the interests and resources of a company or employer. It is completing the task regardless of any adversity or obstacles that present themselves, overcoming all of the inevitable challenges that will happen every day. I have the distinct honor of working with Lieutenant General Ron Bailey, U.S. Marine Corps retired. He is the NECA Vice President of Industries Development, and he leads our leadership safety programs that we have through NECA. And he has shared what he considers the 6 rights of a leader. These rights include the right to be the right person, the right to be with the right people, the right to be in the right place at the right time, making the right decisions, and doing the right thing. As a leader, these rights don't just happen. The leader has to work at each of these key points to be successful. Simply put, one can define integrity as what you do when no one's watching. It's always doing the right thing all the time, even when it may work to your own disadvantage, or it may not be the easiest or the quickest way to accomplish a task. It's also keeping your word. It's an internal compass. It's a rudder that directs you where you know you should go when everything around you is pulling you in different directions. So let's look at the path of a safety professional. Where do they come from? Well, many safety leaders actually come from the industry that they work in, whether it's mechanical, whether it's general contracting, whether it's electrical, whether it's utility. Many of the people that rise to become a safety leader in these industries actually have that field experience. So they come from the field. So the question that we have to ask ourselves, is it better to educate safety requirements to a field person or educate trade-related information, specific information, say for electrical or utilities, to an EH&S graduate, somebody that's familiar with industrial hygiene, but may not be familiar with the hazards associated with the trade? This is a common issue that we always weigh the balances between the two. We really need both. So it's a matter of making a combination of those that have field experience, those that have the educated experience from an EH&S professional or industrial hygiene, especially now with all the pandemic, the issues that we've had. Safety leaders also come from workers who have experienced a career-ending incident or accident. Think about those workers and how long they worked in the trade and what experience do they actually bring to the table. We can use that experience, that legacy experience, to train others and to help others learn to watch out and not make the same mistakes that may have ended this career for this individual. As we said, there are many of those that actually choose environmental safety and health as a career choice. And then, much like myself, to lead into the safety profession, there are those that have volunteered or those that have voluntold. My story to becoming a safety professional is being called into the office by the CEO and president of the organization I work for to be informed that I was now the full-time safety director for a large industrial-based electrical contractor, and it was my responsibility to manage safety for that organization. So as you could say, I was voluntold into this career many years ago, and the success I've had has benefited me from that very day forward. So what is inspiring you? What inspired you to actually look at or to become a safety professional? Yes, we need you in this industry, and we need you leading safety. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of our presentation today. So 5 things that you really need to understand in the first year as a safety professional, according to Julia Kuhnlo, Certified Safety Professional with the BCSP, is you have to be a listener first. You have to understand that you have to listen to what is being said. Everyone plays a role in making workplaces safety, and it's critical to have everyone's perspective on the current state of workplace safety. So the only way you can do that is by listening to those around you on what the culture is. You need to learn the risks and the hazards that are associated with the workplace you may be supervising. If it's a construction site, there may be construction-specific activities that's going on. There may be traffic. There may be, trucks and cranes and bulldozers. All this equipment that has to play into the overall safety plan. Another important aspect of being a safety professional is getting to know the standards and the regulations. What are the laws and requirements that govern safety in the workplace? We can talk about General Industry 1910, we can talk about Construction 1926, we can talk about utility work, the NESC. You have to understand, what are the regulations as well as what are the consensus standards that are developed to assist you in becoming a safety professional and managing safety in the workplace. We have to understand what is the culture. And if the culture is not acceptable, we have to look at what are we going to do to be able to change that and ensure that we get the proper safety culture to benefit our workplaces and keep our workers safe. Another key aspect that many people get tripped up on is we have to strive for progress. While we love to live in a perfect world, many times if we don't achieve perfection, we feel that we're unsuccessful. We have to look at it from making progresses along the way. What we can teach people each day on how to work safer, on how to share that safety message with others. Perfection will come in time. Another good program that you may be familiar with or may want to look into is the Foundations of Safety Leadership. This is a free program that is available online, and if you're a safety professional, it may be a program you'd like to share with some of the workers in your organization because it focuses on 5 critical skills that you as a safety leader can use to really help you create that strong job site safety climate and reduce safety incidents. They are leads by example. We know that every safety leader leads by example in what they do. People are watching you, so we got to make sure to do the right thing all the time. Safety professionals also engage and empower other team members. They ask their opinions. They listen to what suggestions that they have. Maybe they also bring them in and have them perform some of the safety meetings, some of the safety talks, some of the safety inspections that have to be done. A safety professional, safety leader has to practice active listening and practice that 3-way communication that, if we're going to say something, we need to get the feedback. And if that feedback is incorrect, we need to correct that feedback. That's part of the active listening process in communication. Safety professionals also develop the team members through teaching, mentoring, and coaching. And we're going to talk about mentoring and coaching again in a few minutes. But most importantly, praise goes a long way in being successful as a safety leader. Recognize team members for a job well done. Make sure that they're acknowledged for their suggestions, for their participation, for their leadership in doing safety the right way on the job. So let's take a minute to look at some tools that every safety leader has to have in their toolbox. And really, it looks at the basic knowledge that could be described as the collective information you have acquired and accumulated to aid you in the performance of your job. Again, that's going to come from experience. If you're a job field, worker that has field experience in the construction industry, or it may be some of the knowledge that you've acquired through industry awareness. Some of the OSHA safety training that you may have participated in, as well as other industry-specific training programs. And talking about training, think about the safety training that you have received up to this point in time, and think about the safety training that you're going to deliver to others as we move forward. It's the knowledge of the regulations and standards, the consensus standards, the federal regulations from the Department of Labor and OSHA. And then also understanding that when we're in this position in the field, many times we're teaching adults. We have to understand that for an adult to learn, it has to be something related to the task, related to the job, something that is of interest to them in order for them to devote their attention. They have to see the benefit. They're not going to learn something just to learn it. But once they make that connection between what you're teaching and what they're doing, that work and that process is going to be ingrained in their minds. So it really is the skills that you've developed over the years. Think about building a team. Think about putting together a team to be successful, and who you want in that team, and how you actually populate that team with workers of different backgrounds. Your skills in the problem solving and critical thinking and being able to analyze the situations that you're in are key in your success. As we mentioned earlier, the skills to be innovative and creative and to think outside the box, because many times it's not a black or white issue. It's not something that's going to be easily identified. The solution may require some innovative thinking. You also have to have skill in time management as well as organizational skills in keeping your work documented and keeping it on plan. Another key skill that a worker needs to be familiar with is the ability to resolve issues. Many times we're involved in negotiating. Think about when you're negotiating with others, maybe even negotiating with someone in your family. But many times there's going to be issues that arise that may have two sides to it. So we have to work to resolve any issues and any differences that may come up. Think about the stress and related issues, the mental health issues that are going on right now in everyone's life. But think about how you control stress and what are some of the things that you do and you can share with others to be able to help them address some of the stress they may be experiencing. A key skill that we all have to be familiar with and we all have to respect is the skill to be open to constructive feedback. There are many times others may see things in us or may see things that they want to share with us that maybe we can get better at. And so by listening to constructive feedback, we can all progress and get better into our field. So when we think about communication, we talked a little bit about active listening a little earlier. But think about communication and what it means. Well, by definitions, we've got some definitions here to relate to. It's the imparting or exchanging of information or news, okay? It's the means of sending or receiving information. It's a process by which information is exchanged between individuals to a common system of symbols, signs, or behaviors. Simply put, it really is just the act of transferring information from one place, one person, one group to another. So we also have to look at communication as being, again, critical. Errors can be attributed to miscommunication. And if you've ever been involved with a root cause analysis for an incident that may have happened on a job, one of the things that we have to look at is, was there an error in the communication? Was there an error in the instructions that were given? And did we follow through? Communication is very time consuming. It's said that supervisors and managers actually spend the majority of their time actually communicating with others. So when you think about what they have to accomplish in their roles, communication is the majority of the work that they do. The other thing that we have to remember about communication is pervasive. It's the responsibility of the message sender to ensure that all barriers are removed and that the message is clearly understood. And when we're talking about barriers, there are physical barriers, there are sender-receiver barriers, there are cultural barriers, there are language barriers. There are all kinds of barriers that we have to recognize. And as the sender of that information, it's important for us to overcome any of those challenges, to give our receiver a chance to listen to the message and hopefully make sure that it's clearly understood. But George Bernard Shaw said, the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. If we don't practice that three-way communication, if we don't ensure that the message is heard clearly and correctly, then as a sender, we could be part of the problem. When we talk about communications, there's really, there's different types of communications. There's verbal communication, which is really what we're doing today. It's the use of words, it's spoken or written, that help to convey that message. But types of verbal communications actually include, it's a private communication between, individuals or organizations. Maybe it's an interpersonal, it's a one-on-one conversation that you're actually having with someone, just private. But think about the group discussions that occur. And if we were in person, we would be having a group discussion right now based on the information that we're covering. Other types of verbal communications, think about the news. Think about everything that you read online. Think about all the public communications that are developed, to reach the masses. So when we look at verbal communication, we also have to look at nonverbal communication. And when we look at nonverbal communication, a lot of times that's the body language. That's us being, stiff or not paying attention or breathing hard, or our posture is just, to a point where it's actually saying, hey, you're taking up my time. Are we engaged with the conversation, or are we defensive? Is anybody balling their fists? There's some other physical, barriers that we can look at. So when you think about that, what are the signals that you send? What happens if you look down at the ground? We were always taught that when you're talking to somebody and you're listening to somebody and you're paying respectful, to that person, it's look them in the eyes. It's have that, one-on-one conversation that if you see me and I see you, we're communicating. What message do you have when you pick up your phone and you start looking at your phone and somebody's talking and they say, hey, and are you listening? How about closing the eyes? How about somebody's talking and you're closing your eyes? Are you going to sleep? No. I had one supervisor that always closed his eyes every time he was listening. Took me a while to overcome that challenge, that barrier that I seen. But really, him closing his eyes was a way for him to concentrate on the message that's being heard. Because as soon as I finished my talking, he immediately reinforced what I had told him. What message do you send if you're sitting there clicking a pen? Are you impatient? Or are you twirling what are you doing that's showing that you're not interested in the communication? All those nonverbal signals play a key in communication on the job. So think about the skills you need to communicate with your safety network. When you look at your peers, your coworkers, think about the supervisors you've had in your career that have taught you things along the way to help you achieve the safety profession that you're in today or looking to go into. Think about, again, the certified safety professionals, the safety management specialists, the certified professionals from the Board of Certified Safety Professionals and the American Society of Safety Professionals and the National Safety Council, or any other safety safety organization that has developed training, has developed credentials, has developed modules to help you in your safety mission. There are many subject matter experts and safety presenters that you're going to meet over your years of career, whether you attend a conference or whether you attend a virtual conference like we're doing today. But those subject matter experts, say somebody that's familiar with NFPA 70E, the standard for electrical safety in the workplace, there are those that develop that technical standard, consensus standard with NFPA. So they may be considered the subject matter experts that maybe you can glean something from. Another aspect that I always like to remind our safety professionals is the fact that there are many manufacturers and many rental companies out there that have resources to provide training, have resources to provide education, have resources that they can demonstrate the proper use of a piece of machinery that's being delivered to a job. One of the key points that I always did in the field was make sure that whatever rental company provided us with the aerial lift that was going to be used on the job, they had to do an initial site safety class and train all the workers on that site on that piece of equipment. And we had to document it to ensure that we had the records of all the training that was accomplished. So when we think about motivational techniques and we say, why do we work safe? Why must we need to work safe? Think about, we work safe for ourselves. We don't want to get injured. We don't want to get hurt. We really got to find out what motivates that individual. It may be their hobbies. What do they do off the job that may have more importance in their life than what they do on the job? Because, their interests, their activities are going to help govern why they work safe on the job. We think about ourselves, we think about our families, we think about our friends, our coworkers, and think about our employers. We work safe for our employers as well. And they provide us a workplace free from recognized hazards according to the OSHA Act. How do we work safe? We mentioned this earlier. We work safe by leading by example, by demonstrating the safe work practices that have been developed in industries for our protection. We lead by example by always wearing the proper PPE, the personal protective equipment. Think about that manager, that project manager, that upper level person that comes out to a job site. If he gets out of his vehicle or her vehicle and actually is wearing street shoes, they're not wearing any safety glasses, they're not wearing any hard hats, what message does that send to workers on the job? Always show up on the job wearing the proper PPE, the proper footwear, the proper headgear, the proper safety glasses. Make sure you have your gloves. You lead by example by ensuring that everybody that has a task is properly trained for those tasks. In other words, they have the proper qualifications to perform the tasks they're being asked to do. And we lead by example by engaging others. We invite others to participate. We invite others to hold the safety talk today, to be the leader in the safety talk today, or to share a safety message that they may have personally that they would like to share with the other workers. Another key aspect is the management support and employee engagement. For a safety program to be successful for any organization, there has to be a message from the top down. The CEO or president should develop and record and share the mission statement for what the organization is. The other thing that we need management for is to provide the adequate funding and representation, because safety doesn't cost, safety pays. Return on investment for safety and doing things safely and working safely has been a proven given. We also have to look at safety as a core value of the organization. In other words, we're not going to shortcut safety in order to be successful on a job or successful in a bid. We have to include safety in everything that we do. It's a part of all the project considerations. From the first moment we look at the plans to bid a project to the last moment when we're leaving the job, ensuring that everybody on the job has worked safe. It's also about shared responsibilities. And when we talk about shared responsibilities, many times that's between the employers and the employees. We each have a responsibility to each other. But let's carry it a little bit further. Let's look at it from employers have the responsibilities to the employee. We know that. They're the ones that develop the safety programs. They're the ones that develop the written policies that have to be implemented and ensure that everybody follows through. But employees, as we said earlier, have a responsibility to themselves. They have to know what are the hazards that they're working with. Most importantly, employees have a responsibility to their families. They may be the breadwinner. They may be the only breadwinner for that particular family. So what they do on the job is going to affect their spouse, their children, maybe others in their extended family. And employees do have that responsibility to work safe for the employers, to not take chances, to not, do something that's going to be unsafe that could hurt others, that could damage property, that could damage reputation. So employees do have a responsibility to work safe for their employers. As we said, again, management support and employee engagement, the employees are encouraged to report any unsafe condition, close calls. When we talk about, near hits or near miss or whatever terminology that you actually use in your in your field or in your workplace, understand that we need to learn from these to prevent them from happening from others. When it comes to reviewing a process or when it comes to developing a job hazard analysis, we've got to make sure that we engage the people that do the work, because they're the ones that are most familiar with the task as well as most familiar with the hazards that could be associated with it. It's important for everyone within an organization to have stop work authority. If they see something that could potentially be unsafe, they have to have that ability to say, stop, wait, hold, come out, let's regroup. Let's look at what we can do to do this safer. Employees have to believe in the overall company safety directives and initiatives that are developed and shared. If employees don't believe that the employers are watching out for them and following these safety programs, for their protection, unfortunately some things can happen. So when we're talking about safety and safety leadership, and to be a safety professional or not, we're looking at inspiring a new generation of safety professionals. Why? Because there's a critical need in really all industries, in safety and everything, but in construction, there's a critical need for us to have new safety professionals entering the field and learning what they can to be able to share with others. It's one of the things that safety professionals have to have experience in both industry best practice and current safety regulations. They have to be knowledgeable. They have to understand that, what a best practice is. Best practices is something that's tried and true, and it's a process that's been developed by organizations, whether it's the electrical transmission and distribution partnership or other industries that develop best practices that are proven. And we say it commonly, safety is not a secret. If we have a best practice that's going to keep people safe, we need to share that with others. We know that the new generation has to have influence over worker behaviors, and we're not here to talk about all the generations that have worked, from the baby boomers to the Gen X's to millennials and to the next gen, all the workers that are going to be there. We have to have influence over their behaviors in the job. We know that safety really is a rewarding career. We know that at the end of the day, if we've helped people go home, at the end of the day, if we've made a difference in their attitude towards safety and working safe, then we've been successful in what we want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that coaching and mentoring that we mentioned earlier, because coaching and mentoring, while oftentimes, or some people interchange those terms, they're actually two separate tasks. Mentoring is more of telling workers what to do. It's showing them what to do. It's helping them to do what they're doing. Mentors really are usually older, more experienced, or higher up in the organization, but outside the protege's chain of command. A mentor really acts as a role model, and they can help focus on political skills, encouraging self-development, other things that they can do, but they provide advice on career and next steps, and they can recommend to the mentee for visible positions or attractive compensation packages in the future. So think about that mentor-protege relationship works well when someone's starting out in a career or entering into a new role. However, coaching takes a lesson from the Socratic method of learning, and that is really asking questions to help a person reason, to help a person determine and proceed with what to do next. Coaches do not teach, but help through asking a process of discovery questions by using this active listening skills, asking powerful questions, expanding thought process, identifying, limited beliefs, designing action steps and following up. To most leaders, professional coaching practices are counterintuitive. But let's take a look at the characteristics of a coach. Coaches don't talk, they listen. Coaches don't give information, they ask questions. Coaches don't offer ideas. They help the client generate ideas. They don't share their story. It's not about what I've done. It's not about what got me to this point. It's about what the client has. It's about what that person can bring to the table. What experience do they have? As a coach, we're not going to give somebody the answer. We're not going to give somebody a solution. We expand that client's thinking. We expand that person's thinking to be able to, reason for themselves. Coaches don't give recommendations. They really empower the clients. They really empower that person to make their own choices. So a good representation from Carol Wilson here is, a visual representation, as we all learn visually sometimes. Coaching, ask instead of tell. It enhances awareness. And really, coaches, we know nothing. The reality is I may or may not know the answer, but it doesn't help you if I give you the answer. It helps you to get to the answer yourself. Whereas if we're looking from the mentoring side of things, I know a lot. I want to share. I want to advise you. I want to make sure that you do everything correctly. So therefore, I'm going to take you on as a mentee and I'm going to mentor to you. So understand the difference between coaching and mentoring. As we've said before, leadership really is the ability to guide others without force into a direction or decision that leaves them still feeling empowered and accomplished in the decision that they made. So let's take a few moments now to really look at managing effective safety programs and what your role as a safety leader is. Part of what you have to do is you have to develop and implement policies and procedures for your organization. You have to develop those risk assessments, those job hazard analysis to determine, what is the task, what are the hazards, how do we mitigate those hazards. We have to look at, developing the employee training, what is required by OSHA, whether it's general safety, whether it's specific, aerial lift training, whether it's specific excavation training, whether it's specific electrical training. What is the training that we have to do to manage safety for our organization? It's also about the documentation, making sure that any training, any inspection, anything that we do related to safety is documented so we have something to look back on and share with OSHA, because according to OSHA, if it's not in writing, it never happened. When you talk about developing and implementing policies, let's look at that for a minute. Policies have to be clear and concise. They shouldn't be very wordy. They should be short. They should always be in writing. And when you develop a policy, that policy is consistent in application for whoever applies, for everyone that it applies to, from the field worker to the office worker. If you have a policy on DUI or driving under the influence, in company vehicles, that applies to everyone within the organization. There are no exceptions. Remember that if you're consistent in enforcing your policies and procedures, you're going to have disciplinary rules, and you're going to actually act on some of those disciplinary actions and corrective actions that need to be done. One of the things that OSHA looks for is, hey, have you written any warning notices to your employees? Because if you haven't, OSHA is going to look at that as you're not very effective when it comes to enforcing your safety programs and policies. Another key thing that you do is develop and use industry-created best practices that we talked about earlier. When we understand risk assessments and job hazard analysis, we know it's identify the task and identify the hazards, identify the controls and mitigations. And many times, once again, that's always done best if you have an inspection checklist or you have something that's going to help you guide through that process to document it. It's that airline pilot that took off today, on his flight from Baltimore to Los Angeles. He had a checklist. He went through that checklist, and he does it each and every time he takes off. He's doing the same thing, but this checklist reminds him of what he has to do to ensure that he doesn't, forget any step in the process. When we look at this, it really does boil down to the hazard prevention controls, and we have to understand as safety professionals what that hierarchy of controls is. With elimination being physically removing the hazard, because if we can eliminate the hazard, then we don't have a hazard to protect from. But other levels of the hierarchy of control include substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, as well as the last defense is personal protective equipment. It may be a company policy to wear PPE 100% of the time, but according to the hierarchy of controls, it's our last level of defense. When we look at employee training, we mentioned earlier, you have to train on the OSH Act, you have to train on the safety and health policies. What is the emergency action plan, and where is everybody going to muster in the event of an emergency to be accounted for? We talked about that shared responsibilities. And then who do you report to? When you have an incident, on the job, what is your process of reporting to the supervisor, to the company, to the workers' comp, to the insurance? We've got to know what those reporting procedures are and who to communicate to. We have to understand the right to know hazard communication program. That's a requirement from day one for you to be aware of any of the hazardous chemicals you may be exposed to in the workplace. And now that we're just coming out of this COVID-19 pandemic, it is so important for us to understand the importance of exposure control plans and how to properly address those bloodborne pathogens that we may be exposed to. As I said, in documentation, if it's not documented, it never happened. You have to keep records for training. You have to keep records for medical evaluations. If you have an exposure on a job, if you've had to do corrective actions, if you've had to do disciplinary notices, whether it's a verbal warning, a written warning, or termination as a result of some safety infraction. Remember those inspections and those checklists. We talk about, understanding that we have to have something that's going to direct people on what it is that they need to look at, what it is they need to consider. And then we have our job briefings. We have our safety talks. Those that are commonly, we have weekly safety talks that, jobs require. We have job briefings before the work's to get started so that everybody is on the same page and understands the task that has to be accomplished. We talked about job site inspections, and this is a requirement from OSHA. Such programs shall provide for frequent and regular inspections of the job sites, the materials, and equipment to be made by competent persons designated by the employer. Now let's look at that term, competent persons designated by the employer. Why? Because we have to understand what is a competent person. It's defined by OSHA as one who's capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings and working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. By definition, safety professionals are always considered to be the competent person related to safety on the job. Safety professionals have to know all the hazards that are on the job, and they have the stop work authority. They have the authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate hazards. Two other people that we are often, associated with is we're the authorized person from the employer. It means an authorized person means a person approved or assigned by the employer to perform a specific type of duty or duties, or to be at a specific location at a job site. And the last term that many times we're looked at is we're qualified. Well, qualified means by possession of a recognized degree, a certificate, or a professional standard, or who by extensive knowledge, training, and experience has successfully demonstrated his ability to solve or resolve problems relating to the subject matter, the work, or the project. Qualified is a term that comes up often when we're dealing with electrical issues, for instance. You have to be a qualified electrical worker. You don't have to be licensed, but you have to be trained, but you have to be qualified if you're going to be considered for doing electrical work many times in the construction and general industry. So remember, we look at business case for safety and health. Employers that invest in workplace safety and health can expect to reduce fatalities, injuries, and illnesses. The OSHA and Department of Labor looks on the return on investment. They know that what you spend in safety is going to save money down the road in lowering your workers' compensation, your medical expenses associated. It also is going to help you to avoid OSHA penalties and reducing cost. And think about, the retraining of employees. If someone gets hurt and you have to bring somebody new in and you don't have that knowledge, you have to retrain that person. The Department of Labor also knows that a healthy workforce is a productive workforce. So remember, employees are really our most precious resource. Employees are our most important asset. Without them, we can't get anything accomplished. It is our responsibility as safety professionals, as employers, to ensure that employees stay safe and work safe. A couple of additional thoughts in closing here that I'd like to pass on is think about General Colin Powell from the Desert Storm. Leadership is all about people. It is not about organization. It's not about plans. It's not about strategies. It is all about people, motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered, according to Colin Powell. And a couple other things to think about in your career is to say that accidents occur, accidents are due to human error, is like saying falls are due to gravity. Yes, it's true, but it doesn't help them. And another key aspect that we need to consider in our careers, and it goes back to the coaching and the mentoring that we had discussions on earlier, is stop fixing things for people. It builds dependency and resentment. And what is Regina Michael saying here is that, two things happen. If you're constantly correcting somebody, if you're constantly, fine-tuning whatever somebody has written, or, you're constantly, doing the task or finishing the task that someone else is doing, it builds that dependency on that other person. That other person is now dependent that I don't need to worry about it. They're going to change it. They're going to fix it. Many times it can build dependency, but it can also build resentment. Why do I put forth the effort if someone else is going to change? So think about that as you progress in your career. Think about that as becoming a safety professional and how you can help workers, how you can help employers be successful related to safety. So in summary, some of the things that we've talked about here today is we did touch on integrity, doing the right thing when no one's watching. We learned a little bit about the 6 rights of leadership: the right to be the right person in the right place at the right time, with the right people, doing the right thing. Think about all the rights that you have as a leader. And remember, it's about learning. Your learning is continuous. You will never stop learning as long as you're in the safety profession, as long as you're in the construction industry, as long as you're in any job. You never want to get to that point that you feel like you know it all. You want to strive to learn more. It's about the knowledge you've achieved. It's about the skills that you've achieved. It's about the communication that you've actually, understand and practice. Learning how to be a motivator through proper motivation can help a team to succeed. Really, we are, as safety professionals, those servant leaders that help our team members succeed. Remember, you have to develop the policies and procedures that are put in place to protect workers and protect employers. And overall, it's going to be up to you to manage effective safety programs for your employer. I'd like to say thank you for the time that you spent here with me this morning. I look forward to hearing from many of you. My contact information will come up on the slide here shortly. But I would just like to say thank you for your interest in becoming a safety professional. Thank you for your interest in the Board of Certified Safety Professionals and looking at this career fair. There's a lot of topics and there's a lot of choices that you have. And I encourage you to look at as many of them as you can to help you decide on what your future is going to be. Again, I know that if there are any chat window questions, that we'll answer those at this point in time. But in closing, again, my name is Wes Wheeler, and I am the Executive Director of Safety for the National Electrical Contractor Association. My email address is at the bottom of the slide. And I would just like to say thank you for attending. Thank you to the Board of Certified Safety Professionals for this opportunity to share this presentation with our career fair attendees. And I look forward to meeting you one day at one of the events across the country. Take care and be safe.